Rad Raptor Radio. Welcome to Geek Paradise.
See?
Hey!
It's playing the thing.
Look
We're
at
live
that.
on the. I made the theme song play.
It worked out almost. If anybody can hear you, exactly like we wanted.
I don't
it
know if anyone can hear me. That's the thing. We need to get the studio built. Like, this was such.
I'm actually watching your audio levels along the bottom. You're doing fine on this program.
Oh, okay. And this one at least, we're doing okay. Yeah, it's we're trying some new stuff here. We've wanted to do all this stuff for a while, and for some reason, Tim and I, while we were watching his Bulls try to lose last minute, we're like, you know what we should do in the morning? We should just do it. 2-camera setup. We're gonna make this live. Everything's gonna be fine.
Rad Raptor Radio Morning Show Edition. And maybe we'll do more morning show editions. Jeff and I have had a dream for a lot of years now. I think it goes back from before when I was a morning show host and you came back and co-hosted with me one day. And since that day, we've been talking about trying to do a morning show style show together. And then we wanted to do it on video because obviously I'm very photogenic.
Yeah.
And so, and here we are. It is Rad Raptor Radio. I'm Tim.
I'm Jeff. I don't think anybody can actually see this right now is the fun thing. I think the recording of the video is working. I think the live to Facebook.
We're not streaming live on Facebook?
I mean, you could check.
It is true, I could check.
It doesn't seem to actually...
I mean, ultimately, if we're just doing a recording, we could start over if we wanted to.
No, it's working.
It's working? You can see us?
It's working. We just can't see the display video thing.
Interesting.
So, and,
it's a work in progress.
Yeah, it says it's not working, but I'm looking at my dumb face going, it's not working! So, there we go.
Why can't we get this up?
Yeah. So this is, if you've never listened to the show before, every week on Spotify, or other podcast delivery things, we put out a show called Rad Raptor Radio, and, it's a good time. We've been doing it for longer than the store has been open, and the store is about to hit 3 years.
Yeah, Rad Raptor Radio's been around a while. This was what? This would technically be episode 167?
That's what the math says, and I'm sure my fat fingers have messed a number up or two along the way. But
we're right around. We're above 165 and below 170, probably.
Right in there. So. Yeah, we've been doing. I mean, so I worked for another guy selling comics, and like I think when I left that shop, and then there was like we gave it like a week, and then a week later Bobby and I started Rad Raptor Radio. So
we had a week off because you were in another comic book podcast where you drank beer and talked about comic books.
It was called 2 Beers and a Pull List. I still think that, like, one, I love that name. 2, it was a great concept.
I guess it was your name.
It was. The concept was we were going to try a new beer each time.
Which didn't happen.
No.
After about the first 2 episodes, it was like, hey, we got the Natty Light going tonight, so...
Well, I kept trying a new beer, and then he was like, no, I just like this one. I was like, but the point was that, okay. And then, yeah.
Also, although there are a lot of craft breweries around, you would have struggled to get to 167 episodes.
I don't think so.
You'd have had to work at it a little bit. You'd had to, like, order them in or take long drives to get them.
No, we're in,
around here, I don't know if you're doing 167 in Michigan.
No, we're like in beer Mecca.
We are, but it's still 167.
You could get to 167 different beers.
No, I think we gotta go count.
Okay. Okay, guys, we're gonna shut the podcast down.
If anybody wants to do this, send us a picture of 168.
Or just send us beer. I mean, that's not like I'm sure we'll count up to 167.
It doesn't work for the morning show motif.
It doesn't.
That shows that there would be some severe problems going on.
Right. But yeah, we've been doing this show for a while. Every week we go through the comic books that we read, and in the back half of the show, we do like here's our favorite one, counting down our basically Tim and I's top 3. Usually Bobby has been involved in this in the land of COVID. That hasn't happened as much. Last couple of weeks we've had Andrew on, so it's been a rotating chair, but it's been pretty much consistently you and I.
You and I have been on consistently since the beginning. Like, we've missed a little time here and there, but for the most part.
It's been a lot of that.
And again, we're kind of having a dream. Although it hit me as you drink out of McDonald's cup, and I've got my travel mug. We probably, if we're going to do this more often, we need large, oversized mugs with our faces on.
That's the plan.
To drink the coffee.
Ross says hi, and Brian says, I see you guys.
Well, that's good.
Chad says, there's a place in Toledo called Hub's Pub that boasted 300 beers from around the world. So that's at least 300 episodes.
That's all the way in Toledo, man. We're talking Adrian, Michigan.
You who throughout this entire COVID thing is like, I'm driving to Indiana, somewhere I can sit down and eat like a gentleman.
I did drive to Indiana a lot.
But won't drive to Toledo for more than 10 years.
I'm a human being. I'm not meant to eat. I eat in my car a lot too. But yeah, you know.
I eat way too much in my car. That it's usually a shame eating.
I eat in my car a lot, but yeah, usually you feel a little bad about it afterwards. You know it's not the right decision to make. It's the decision you make at the time, but it's never the right decision to make. I'm
doing better right now. I started Couch to 5K back up. I am doing the keeping my eating between 2 o'clock and 10 o'clock at night, and that's the only things I'm doing right now to make slow. Yeah, because that last doctor's appointment was are you a guy who just sits around and reads comic books and eats things? Yes, I am.
Yes, that is me.
That is me.
I to my shame did not go to. So I hadn't. COVID has not been a good time for many of us.
Yes.
And so I put on what I would call my COVID depression weight.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was 20 to 25 pounds of COVID depression weight. Turns out it was closer to 55 pounds of COVID, and I hadn't stepped on the scale since probably March. And so about a week and a half ago, I thought, I'm going to do it. I'm going to get on the scale. I'm going to start getting things right. I'd been working out for a couple weeks before that, but still kind of uneasy to step on the scale. And so I stepped on the scale, realized it was 55, had such shame that I then canceled my next doctor's appointment because I didn't want him to say anything. And then I was about to join a weight loss competition, and I pulled out of the weight loss competition because I didn't want to have to list my actual weight out of shame of where I got to. Now, I will say, I've been calorie counting, and I've been working out for about 3 weeks now. It's more lifting because I'm, too fat to do anything else. So it's more lifting based.
Yeah.
But over the last week since I've stepped on the scale, I think I'm down 7 pounds now. So I probably would have won that weight loss competition, but there was no way I was going to post my actual weight. It just wasn't going to happen. So COVID, you won, but I'm fighting back.
It killed me too. I mean, it's I knew I was putting them on, but it was that stretch when I actually got COVID. I think that really did it in because you don't move, and then you don't really eat that week you have COVID, but that week afterwards, you can't go anywhere.
Yep.
And DoorDash exists, so you're just I don't know, I don't have the energy to cook kids. Here, let's order McDonald's for a third time today because I'm making good decisions. And then just
I had the issue, so I didn't eat the week I had COVID. I really didn't eat the next 2 weeks because, it really hit me hard. But because everybody was worried about me not eating for 3 weeks, why, who knows? But it ultimately turns into, well, we'll get you whatever you want to eat. And so then as you start eating, all of a sudden you go from eating a somewhat healthy diet to you're I could probably eat a bacon pepperoni pizza from down the street and maybe a dozen donuts. I maybe could force my way through that dozen donuts if I really tried hard. And then you end up with 55 pounds of COVID weight, canceling your doctor's appointment out of shame.
Out of shame and embarrassment. Yeah. My it's funny. My doctor has switched now to someone I went to college with.
That's awkward.
99.9% of the time it's actually much better because before I had the sweet Indian woman who never remembered me from appointment to appointment.
Yeah.
Oh, what do you do? I'm the guy who owns the comic store. Oh, any money in comics? That does no, I can pay the bill.
She probably didn't expect you to have a comic, so she asked every time.
Every time,
those
still
stores
open.
have a 2-year lifespan.
Yeah. So I switched from her but I literally, I went to college with her, which like, and she didn't remember me. We had like one class together, which is fine. But 99 times out of 100, it's actually kind of nice thing, like, hey, how's it going, and like, very friendly, but like, yeah, that was like, and usually it's been like, yeah, I'm trying to lose weight, but, like, aren't we all, blah, blah, blah. This was the first appointment where she was like, so, we need to have a conversation.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So and it had been pushed back a couple times pre-COVID, where I was as I said, 55 pounds ago. I was in my doctor's appointment, and he had got down, and I was in for something else. And he looked, he goes, oh, the weight. He goes, actually, let's just schedule a physical so we can talk about all of that. So I realized why that physical, and then it had been pushed back like 4 times because of COVID. And so as it was coming up, I just casually hopped on and canceled the appointment, and you know what? It actually turned out well. My wife got sick the night before and ended up in the hospital all night, and so I would have been tired had I tried to go to that appointment. I would have tried to blame the weight on that. I'd be like, yeah, I know it's 55, but I didn't sleep last night. I'm sure that's got everything to do with it. So
yeah, everything. That's all it is. It's just sleeping.
I would have tried.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's already. I mean, you've got a decade on me. It's getting harder to get back every time I put this weight on, and I need to learn that and just make better decisions. But we're nerds. Like, we like to sit around and watch comic book movies, comic book shows, wrestling, and like, oh man, watching this is nice. You want to make it better? Eating. I mean,
while I watch it, yeah.
When me and the kids watched the Elimination Chamber, I had like this whole appetizer spread where it's like, all right, there's potato skins, and there's pigs in a blanket, and there's taquitos and stuff to dip the taquitos in, and mozzarella sticks and stuff to dip. That's how you enjoy stuff.
Well, I'm not going to say that. It's how the less wealthy enjoy stuff.
Is that what it comes down to? We're just poor?
We grew up poor. And so in our minds, because it's what our parents did. If you're going to make something special, you can't travel to somewhere special. You can't, dress up for a special dinner or something like that. So what do you do to make something special? You throw a bunch of cheap, high-fatty appetizers at it. Yeah. And you're like, all right, it's special now because we've got mozzarella sticks. And you're buying a bag of those in the freezer section for $3 for 50 mozzarella sticks, and you're throwing them on a tray in the oven, and so they're not even that great because they're not been deep fried. But again, in the back of your head, you're like, it's special. We should get out those $3 mozzarella sticks. Yeah, it's an entire mindset of those people who grew up perhaps
of us poors.
Not that we're wealthy now. I would say we're both in a position that may be above where we were growing up.
Well, that's the crazy thing from like my dating life and stuff now is like having people go like, no, you should aspire better to this. It's like, but my kids are in separate rooms. What are you talking about? Like,
when they have a toothache, I take them to the dentist.
Yeah, we go to dentists.
Deal with it. Jen will still tell story, and she's like, yeah, so, I needed to go to the dentist, but, there was never money to go to the dentist, so they just said, take some Tylenol.
Yeah, no, it's like, we never did any of that stuff, and, like, it's not like it was bad parenting, it was just, there wasn't a lot to go around, there was a lot of us, and there wasn't, but, the clothes were all hand-me-down clothes or stuff that Goodwill
what do you drink if it's a special occasion and you're not drinking tap water out of the sink? It's Kool-Aid. Yes. Why? Because you can buy a bag of sugar for 99 cents, and you can buy a packet of Kool-Aid for 10 cents down at the Save-A-Lot. And
that's
there's a lot of things that we grew up with that mindset. And so,
whereas my kids throw a fit of like there's no longer things I could pull out of the fridge and directly drink that are individually packaged. Like, what are we supposed to do? And it's like, figure it out.
It's interesting because I feel like we've created some of those same things, we've just upped it, Like my kids, she's like, Dad, what am I going to drink? All we got is bottled water. I'm all out of juice boxes. Or my older daughter, she's like, we're all out of teas. Do you think, because she likes to drink tea out of the glass bottle throughout the day. Do you think we could get some more tea? Because I've had to drink bottled water now for the last day and a half. So, maybe creating some of those same. It's got to be better than Kool-Aid, though.
Probably.
Yeah.
So I did want to talk to you, Tim, about because you're the resident Tom King expert, and we had a Tom King announcement.
Are you
this
excited
week.
about the Supergirl series?
Pitch me on it. What is the Supergirl series?
Actually, Tom King was talking about it on Instagram last night.
Yeah.
He described it as it's going to be similar in feel to the Superman Up in the Sky series that he did, which was the Walmart Superman.
Which was like your favorite.
Probably my favorite thing that came out in
wasn't
last
your
year, 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
Wasn't your number one book that year, but it was close. It was
my
like 2
number
or
2
3.
book that year, yeah. I think so.
I don't remember what your number one was.
It was Batman.
Batman. Okay,
it was
that
the last
tracks.
hit.
Yeah.
That was his end of Batman, and Superman was number 2.
Yeah.
So it's going to be I want to say it's either a 10 or 12 issue miniseries versus the 6 that the Superman was. But yeah, it's.
Are they going to be full issues this time? Because before it was 6 issues, but they were like just part of those Walmart packs, right?
I think it was 12 part issues, 6 full issues altogether.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, no, I think it's going to be full issues. I think it's going to be now. Tom King's writing style has changed. I don't know if he will do it like he did that Superman Up in the Sky, where he told very much because it was coming out at Walmart.
He told a straightforward story.
He told more of a straight story, but they were also very much all standalone. Actually, did you ever end up reading Up in the Sky?
No,
because it would be your favorite Tom King thing. Because he tells like 6 different stories, but then loosely ties them all in together with a general theme, which you get from the first and the 6th story that kind of wrap it. And the rest of it, you're like, oh, he's still traveling through space, but what's happening now?
I think we have those in like pretty hardcovers. I just need to bring home
some pretty hardcovers
and actually read it.
No, I was super excited about that. Now I will say, and we'll get to it when we get to Infinite Frontier. They did go over all of the major new series within the confines of the Infinite Frontier book that came out this week.
Mm-hmm.
However, none of the mini-series that are coming out with Infinite Frontier were mentioned in it. So, like, Swamp Thing didn't get a mention.
Yeah.
The Supergirl didn't get a mention. So, I would have enjoyed that. But let's give Tom King more credit, everybody. But no, we're going to live in a moment here. I don't know when that is going to come out, but we're getting Strange Adventures.
Yeah.
Batman, Catwoman, Rorschach, and Supergirl, all Tom. Well, four Tom King novels, or not novels, but books. Over probably at least a month or 2 before.
It's feast or famine because I remember I'm not as big of a Tom King fan as you are. Few are as big of a Tom King fan as you are,
I
but
may be his biggest fan,
I remember.
There's a lot of them.
I remember where there was like only one coming out, and like every week on this podcast, you're like, "What is going on?
Well,
the world has no meaning."
There was a 3-month time at the start of last year we had 0.
Yeah.
Like he finished the they pulled him off Batman at 85, and then there was a stretch where there was nothing before Strange Adventures came out. But Strange Adventures is only on 8, so that was 1 a month.
What are the chances Tom King still works for the CIA, and like this is all part of it?
I believe he does.
Is that the?
He's at least got connections there, right?
Like what if the CIA was like, all right, we need to like integrate ourselves into popular media to like try to control the. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put a guy. We're going to make him writing Batman, and we're going to make 2 guys in Adrian fight constantly over whether the series is good or not.
The CIA mostly deals with international stuff. I'm not sure that would be a perfect idea for them, but maybe. Who knows who's watching this video podcast right now?
The planes are going to start flying in. They're on to us! Yeah, he, the one time we met him, I can't believe that he actually was a CIA guy. He doesn't seem that way at all.
He doesn't. Although, I don't know. He's probably the only CIA guy I've met, so maybe every CIA guy is like that. Like, if we're looking at our body of evidence...
that you know of.
That you know of, yeah. I mean, we obviously watch on TV.
I've been an agent this entire time. I just got you to marry my sister. This is a long con.
That's a very long con. A lifetime con. But no, so yeah, I mean, maybe they're all like Tom King. I really want Baltimore Comic Con to happen this year so I can go back and
it's still scheduled to be on right now, right?
Yeah.
So, because that
Jeff's cousin Sarah, if you're watching this, hopefully we'll be coming to stay with you again in October. Surprise!
Because that was going to be like our yearly trip, and then we didn't get to go last year, obviously, because COVID was happening.
If I want to change gears here just a minute.
Okay.
Because so I got these shoes the other day. They showed up yesterday. They are Skechers slip-on shoes, and they are the most comfortable shoe I've ever owned.
Skechers slip-on shoes. I have a pair like that. They are wonderful.
Then they've got like a special it's a memory foam in bottom to them, and everything. Like I got into these shoes, and it's like I'm wearing slippers to work, man.
Yeah.
It's like I'm wearing slippers to work. I could not be happier right now. I feel like I want to stand up and do the show just because these shoes are so comfortable.
So that goes away. They're the sorry to be the bearer of bad news. They're the best shoes ever when you first get them. But you know how like all shoes like kind of wear out over time. Those wear out, and that like the fit just starts to get like looser and looser, and then you feel like you're wearing slippers to work, but they're like loose slippers
sliding off your feet.
Yeah, and then you stand up and there's like no support whatsoever. But for that first month or two, you're just like, oh man, why don't I always wear shoes like this?
For $45 for this kind of comfort, maybe I buy a new pair every 2 months.
Yeah.
But no, I was so I've gotten some new shoes. The problem is, much like the rest of me, I have wide feet. And so it's tough to get a good shoe. Most people, if they even like buy you shoes, they buy you just a size 13 and not a 13, because 13 wides are a little tough to come by, and these were in a 13 wide, and they're super comfy.
I love that like we have similar shoe sizes because I'm like one short of that, and also have to get the wide feet. But I'm so much shorter than you. It's ridiculous.
Because my shoe size for a guy my size, like a 13 shoe isn't complete. It's a maybe touch on the big side, but it's not all that big for a guy who's 6'3". Well, 6'2.5" because I'm getting old. But for a guy who's 5'1",
it's not quite that bad.
I keep making you shorter. Guy's 5'1", like a size
I'm
13 is.
I'm like 5'5", 5'6", somewhere in there. On Tinder, I'm 5'7". It's short though, and like when I was like 12. I had feet this big and was this tall, and they're like, oh, you're gonna grow into those. You're gonna be 6 foot something. Let's train him to be center. And that wasn't the case.
My son he did the same thing. He stands at 5'9", and it's interesting because in most groups he's not the tallest guy in the room by a long shot. However, if it comes to any type of Conley family reunion, he is the second tallest person in the room after me.
That is true.
So
we are not a tall people.
5'9" on that side. 5'9" on the Ambrose side of things, and he is like the shortest one who's like naturally born Ambrose, and 5'9" on the Conley side. They're like, wow, you're a giant. You have to get all the things off the top shelf. So.
Well, Ross is saying that he doesn't know how to feel about the new Swamp Thing. We're going to talk about that, actually, when we come back and do our picks of the week. So we're going to take a quick break here. I'm going to go
We're going to see if it works.
I'm going to go make sure my children are locked up in the back where Andrew works at. And it's
going to go give Andrew a hug?
Andrew's not here yet, but like they are probably destroying his office, so I have to step in there to be like, guys, please don't.
It's great. Andrew, we've got mics just amped up to try to hear us right now. Again, this is not our permanent setup, but we wanted to get this thing off and running.
Yeah.
So as we got started, seconds before the mics went hot, I just hear Jeff's kids screaming outside in the hallway. Now we're in a big kind of business plaza building. There's 5 businesses in here, and I'm like, oh, all those other businesses. So.
All right, so we will be right back
after these messages.
We'll be right Turn our mics
Hey, we
back
got mics now.
up.
We should probably find a way to like lower the music underneath us talk, but then it wouldn't work with the podcast end of it.
No.
So we're actually, because this is a dual thing, this will show up as a podcast as well for all of you listening. And most of you will actually be hearing this as a podcast, I'll say that. I think we didn't advertise this at all for this morning, so I think we got 5 people watching with us.
Yeah,
but which is more than I thought we'd have. Again, we kind of kept it on the hush-hush. We knew we were going to try it, but we didn't want to say a whole lot because we knew it could also just crash and burn, and it's only 50% crashed and burned. So
only 50%,
yeah, I
which
like
is
that.
really, for us, that's a pretty
That's a
good.
solid
That's
number.
a pretty good.
Ultimately, think of how far this has come from our original setup at your kitchen table, recording both audio and video with one line going into, or not even a line because there was no mic. It was just a phone stuck in an old cereal bowl.
Yeah.
That was precariously sat on a chair that had a bookcase on top of it with the cereal bowl on it.
No, so that's where we set the camera, which was like, it was my ex-wife's wife at the time's like nice Canon. That was like, she was a photographer, and like she got like a really nice camera that like happened to take really good 720p video because that's what you wanted at the time. It was a really good 720p video.
Huge, yeah.
And so we would take that and set it. And the video thing, it didn't matter which SD card you put in that thing. It would only record about 30 minutes of video. So every 30 minutes I'd go and restart it in the cereal bowl so we could get...
So whatever the case, this has come a long ways.
We're moving up in the world.
I don't know what this audio will sound like.
I'm
but
drinking some Diet Peach tea.
I had one of those yesterday, not bad. Although we definitely got to get that fridge working because I feel tea is better cold.
So here's the thing: I would have just
lukewarm is really the rough spot for tea.
I would have bought us a fridge by now, but Andrew's like, no, we can clean that fridge out, which scares me. I don't want to open that fridge, let alone clean it.
That fridge should probably be. Do fridges burn? Like we just need to burn.
We should just set fire to it.
Yeah.
If you've not heard the fridge tale before, we had a fridge when we first opened up, and my ex at the time thought we should never order food in, which in those early days in which Tim and Bobby were working here all the time and not getting paid, I wasn't going to buy those guys lunch every day.
Thanks, man.
No, I'm saying I was going to buy you lunch every day. I wasn't going to not buy you lunch every day.
Yeah.
However, the person I was married to at the time felt I shouldn't be buying you or anybody lunch every day, and we should like
Thanks, Kim. I thought we were friends.
eat bologna sandwiches, and so would throw things like bologna and bread and cheese in the fridge, which wouldn't get eaten because I had all these people working here not getting paid. They'd be like, "Hey, can we get burgers?" I'm like, "Yeah, totally."
We also enjoy Chop Burger every.
Yeah, that's
the
the thing. So at some point, we just stopped using the fridge that was filled with things that we didn't put in there, and then it got moved a couple times, and then it got like set on top of a filing cabinet.
Well, it was on still, so it was keeping things cold, but then like we had like the back covered up, so then it stopped keeping things
Someone
cold.
bumped the extension cord that was and then it just turned into this nightmare fridge of like, that's not my job to open it, it's somebody else's job. And now Andrew's convinced that it can be like cleaned out rather than buying a new one.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens with that.
We'll keep you updated on
this is a comic book podcast, though.
Yeah, every week we read a stack of comics. We don't get through everything we want to, but we do try to read a good chunk of books this week. And then we pick out our favorites. We're going to talk kind of a little more in depth about 3 of them, and then we'll review what else we read. And we do what's called a pick of the week. Jeff and I both have one. And Ross, if you keep listening, we'll probably be talking about Swamp Thing at some point. I didn't get to it, but Jeff, in fact, did.
Yeah.
I heard a comment coming. I don't know if I can't read it, Rezi, because I got my comic thing up. But should we hit books?
Yeah. Go. What's your pick of the week?
So my pick of the week right now, probably for good this week. One of the best things I've read this year. Infinite Frontier, number 0. This is Infinite Frontier, number 0. Now, I'll be honest with you. This was a thick book. I kept putting it off. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning last night. This was the last thing I read, and I'd been putting it off because it's kind of daunting in size. I flipped through it, and at first flip through, it looked confusing. That being said, this book is amazing. First off, I didn't even grab this cover. Well, I do now. But this is like Cosmic God Wonder Woman on the cover.
Okay.
Couldn't figure out who this is. This is Cosmic God Wonder Woman. And what this book does is, for anybody who read Dark Knight's Death Metal, it takes everything that happened there, and then it wraps it up with a bow quite perfectly, and then it takes everything that happened with Future State,
Yeah.
and makes that all possible future outcomes, and then restarts the DC universe, all in one comic book. And so what we start off with, if you did read Dark Knight's Death Metal, I'll try to make this not confusing because it wasn't at all in the book. But Wonder Woman essentially has to achieve godhood and rewrite history to beat the Batman who laughs. So she does that. Wonder Woman becomes a god, which is what you saw in the comic book Immortal Wonder Woman of Future State at the end of time. And so Wonder Woman becomes a god, full god, is able to rewrite all of the history of the multiverse and defeat the Batman who laughs that way.
Yeah.
So now we start off, Wonder Woman is up in the cosmos with like these 5 other gods who have now returned. Like you get the main guy from like the Green Lantern thing, like the little blue guy.
Okay.
And then there's one with a big beard, and there's another one who's orange.
Oh yeah, big beard guy.
I don't know who these gods are. But they're the DC gods, right? And they're looking down and they're like, Wonder Woman...
is one of the DC gods Jim Lee?
No. I mean, in reality, yes, but no. So they're like, Wonder Woman, because of what you've done, you now get to join us, right? And they go into this big explanation how there were 52 worlds, but those
so is she just part of the Time Warner board now? Is that
enough jokes? 52 worlds have now been erased, but there are now an infinite amount of worlds with infinite possibilities, and they're ready for her to step in and join them. Wonder Woman's response is, no, what about my friends? I've got to make sure they're all okay.
Yeah.
And so at that point in time, Spectre's there. He's one of the gods too. And they're like, hey, take her and show her all of her friends are okay. And so then they take you to all of these snippets, these little 3-4 page snippets of all of the different major titles in Infinite Frontier, where Wonder Woman checks in on all of the people who have been her, like Superman, Batman, the Teen Titans. You get to see like a Teen Titans Academy running, like all these different things. You get that, and so you just have this whole thing. And she's like, hey, what about the fact I saw how these futures go? And they're like, no, that was just a possible outcome. But you can always change the future. And so making all a future state having happened, however, it doesn't have to happen that way.
Yes.
And then she comes back and they're like, are you ready to join us now? And she's like, no, after seeing all the possibilities, I want to return, much like I returned, with Steve Trevor to the world of men. I want to return again. And so then she steps out in her cool new Wonder Woman costume, which is the one that you've maybe been seeing if you've seen the promos for the new Wonder Woman book, where she looks a little more like Viking almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nearly a perfect book. I know I'm not doing justice to it. Then you get this cool epilogue at the end, where of course everything she's worried about, because the whole time she's like, anytime you use magic like this, power like this, there's a price that has to be paid.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, there's no price. We're looked ahead in the future. We've looked for there is no price. And then in the epilogue you see the price, and it says continued in July. So we're going to obviously be heading with all of these Infinite Frontier titles into a mega event in July. I would imagine where the books will all combine once again into, because we have to have mega events every 6 months or readers get bored.
Every 2 months, it seems.
Well, this is 4 months away now, 5 months.
Yeah.
So this was so good. As I said, this is what... Also, we actually see the Magistrate in this book. This could be the actual first appearance of the Magistrate. Not to mention first appearance of like Cosmic God Wonder Woman dressed all in white. So this should be this week's biggest spec book. Tim said it right here. I'm calling it biggest spec book of the week. Her first cover appearance of Cosmic God Wonder Woman.
That has not held to be remotely a spec book. But,
Well, it should be.
Yeah, no,
Because anybody who shows up in a Batman book gets major spec heat. And from the way this book lays it out, it looks like in Tamaki's run, eventually Batman will still be running into the Magistrate.
Oh, that actually happened in the Batman book this week, too.
Yeah.
Which you should be at some point. I hope you can just get over your they took Tom King off this fight and actually read Batman. My pick of the week this week is Demon Days.
Really?
X-Men Demon Days by Tamaki, or not Tamaki, sorry, by Momoko.
You just call Tamaki and Momoko the same
I called Momoko Tamaki because we were just talking about Tamaki.
I won't mention. I'm going to pull this from the bottom of my stack.
That's not totally surprising to me. Tim and I like very different things in comic books. This is about exactly what I want. Take these characters that I really like, do something new and interesting with them. I honestly, at this point, I could give two craps about continuity. I don't want to see things tied together. I want something that is fresh both for me and somebody. So like Tim just talked about probably the most perfect Tim ever. Like, no, this thing ties all these books together and makes them all...
It literally tied everything that has happened in DC and will happen in DC. And like, for DC, which is a train wreck, to actually put a coherent thought together in a book and wrap up, what do we have, 80 years of history, and then tie it into whatever happens going forward, so brilliant.
So me personally, as a reader, I don't care. Like, and that's not like to like place value on it. It's just I don't care, and like that when things tie together that much, it makes me want to read stuff less. The fact that I can pick this up and just like have a small pitch, which is like, hey, this is like Marvel stuff reinterpreted through Japanese folk tales and stuff. And like, oh, that's really cool. Also, it's the first time Peach Momoko has like written something. Actually, she's doing all the interior art, and you get this cool like just world, this like the Marvel stuff re-represented in all of these like Japanese folk tales, which is awesome. I mean, Venom showing up as like this massive snake, Wolverine,
Snake demon, yeah.
Wolverine just being this like wolf dog that hangs out with her, like it's cool. And all of that I kind of expected going in, but then it has that like level of intrigue coming out there then, because in the last couple of pages there's this reveal of like, oh, there's someone actually sitting here reading this stuff, and so that might actually be our pull into the real world, or the world of Marvel that we know more, is that there's someone sitting here kind of reading these tales. And I love this end to end, and like I said, it's just, for me, the more abstract you get, the more like, hey, let's just tell new cool stories with these characters. That is kind of what I'm here for.
I'm going to put it this way, and so here's the deal. I know I said I pulled it from the end. Everything I read of the 10 books, I read all number ones, and everything I read, I enjoyed, I felt had value in a lot of ways. I did think this book was good. I thought this book was a very interesting story being told, and I thought this book was beautiful to look at. That being said, I don't necessarily like the idea of throwing X-Men into it. There is always going to be a certain percentage of people, me included, who read an X-Men book and expect something resembling an X-Men book. And this is a beautiful Japanese folktale, and you could have done this book. I mean, everyone's like, which Psylocke is it? It's no Psylocke that you've ever seen. It's her own Psylocke. Psylocke has no powers necessarily. She's a 15-year-old Japanese girl whose biggest power is negotiation. Maybe. She doesn't really have any power. Wolverine is a dog who does heal fast by the name of Logan. There is Venom, sort of. It's a snake demon. And it's all based in part. You get to the end of it, like the characters, the demons and everything are based in part on classic Japanese folklore.
Yeah,
I would have loved to see this just as that classic Japanese.
No,
folklore.
I like the mashup. The mashup's
because
cool,
I think
and we
there's
know
gonna be
those
a
characters.
number of people who grab this book thinking it's an X-Men book, and this isn't an X-Men book. This isn't an X-Men book in any way, shape, or form. If you got rid of X-Men here and you just called this, no, listen to what I'm saying. I let you talk, so let me talk.
All right.
If you got rid of X-Men and called this book Peach Momoko, Demon Days, you would have the same story. Ultimately, you would not be trying to guess that Logan was actually Wolverine. It would just be the wolf that was accompanying a young Japanese
But I wouldn't like
warrior
it as much then.
into a town.
What I like is that
and
what I and other people like about it is that it is an X-Men book that is reinterpreted through Japanese
I will go.
folktales.
What I and other people dislike about it is the fact that it's not an X-Men
But you're
book
the
in
first
any way,
person
shape, or
I've
form.
heard that isn't like,
Really?
this thing's so
How do
cool.
we follow completely different worlds outside of this?
That doesn't
we
surprise
both
me
follow
because
comic worlds
Yes.
though, and like I have ran into nothing but complaints about this.
Oh,
book because
I've
it's
seen
not an X-Men
I've
book.
seen nothing but like, holy cow, this is so cool.
And it was a beautiful book,
Yeah.
but it was just So yeah, my guess is there are 50% of like everything. 50% of people love it. 50% of people don't. And I'm not saying. I'm going to say this book is worth you picking off the shelf, right? If you're an X-Men fan, if you like anything to do with the X-Men, ignore that. Ignore that it says X-Men. If you want to, get a black marker and just scribble this X-Men out, right?
I think the X-Men part.
Hey, this is Peach Momoko Demon Days.
No, I would like.
This tells.
I would like
named,
it. So I'm telling.
Why can I never talk?
Every
time I start talking, you interrupt me.
No, because
okay, Jeff gets to talk. And I will
think
sit
you
here.
are fundamentally like not understanding. Like, yes, you would like it better if X-Men wasn't
So
there.
would a lot of other people.
But I would like it less if X-Men was.
No, I'm
wasn't
talking
there.
to not you. I'm not talking to Jeff or the weird people who don't want any continuity with their comics
So we're
and just
weird
want
now.
everything all frilly-nilly. All right? So if you enjoy continuity, if you're like X-Men, yeah, I grew up with those in the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. This is something I know and love. All right? This is not your book. Take the X-Men away, though. Take the black marker, scribble out where it says X-Men, and because ultimately there is no reference to anything X-Men, right? There is no mutant. There's nobody being downtrodden for their mutantness. There's nobody This is a Japanese folktale that is beautiful to look at and beautifully told. Outside of the fact that one of the characters somewhat resembles Psylocke, and the dog is named Logan, and the snake has a kind of symbiotic-looking face, and they call it Venom. That is your only ties, is two names.
I think
Venom and Logan is your only ties into
But
the
I think
again,
down
I'm
the
not
line, I think down the line that back part where
she's reading the book.
They're showing that. I think you're gonna see that stuff actually come through down the line.
Maybe you will, but you know what? If you read this expecting an X-Men book, you're going to be disappointed because it's not an X-Men book.
What if, Tim, the first page was like, this is Multiverse 973, where the X-Men are really Japanese folk characters, and you'd be like, this is the greatest book ever.
Not necessarily. It's not an X-Men book. There are at least some keys that you have to hit with the X-Men to make it X-Men. And this doesn't touch on any of those. Aside from it, use the name this book is an X-Men book in the same way your daughter is an X-Men because her name is Logan.
She believes
right?
she's an X-Men.
So when she runs through here, if you believe that Logan represents the X-Men, then this can be an X-Men book because there is one character named Logan. And a snake, which snake's naturally venomous, the snake is named Venom. So that could even not... And Venom not X-Men related.
We watched X2 the other night, and the entire time, she was like, his name's Logan. Do you know that, my name's Logan because his name's Logan? Both Peyton and Hunter were like, yeah, we know. We get it. About every time he was on screen, that had to come up.
But no, so yeah, we'll stick with, we both enjoyed this. We both had very different reactions to it. I'm going to say, if you are a big X-Men fan, which Jeff likes the X-Men, but I wouldn't call him an X-Men fan because he hates any form of continuity and anything. He hates multiple books and all of that. So if you like that stuff,
word,
this is
like,
probably not the book for
yeah.
you thinking it's an X-Men book. Again, there are two characters who would go into the X-Men universe. One of them kind of looks like a character from the X-Men universe, and the other one is named after a character of the X-Men universe, and that is the only into the X-Men universe that this book contains.
I think the Psylocke stuff is so messy at this point that I could see this becoming a very important book down the line. Because
I would say this will have nothing to do with any form of any continuity down the line. Psylocke is Psylocke. She's not messy. I mean, you just have to follow her origin. As anybody with a third-grade education can do.
Okay, so Psylocke was taken over by
Betsy Braddock, Captain Britain.
For decades.
Yes.
That personality was living in Psylocke's body.
And now she's not.
Now she's not. She's out in her own, which means there's this other Psylocke going around.
Which is the original Psylocke. Not hard.
It is.
Captain Britain was then killed, and now there's dozens of Captain Britons who none of them are the original Captain Britain. So Betsy Braddock is no longer Betsy Braddock as Captain Britain, and Psylocke is no longer Betsy Braddock as Psylocke.
Yeah, okay, so everything you just said is why, like, when people are like, I like the X-Men, and they try to pick up X-Men comics, and they stop reading X-Men comics.
I mean, maybe that's for the very casual reader, but for the person who's been following X-Men for any amount of time, it makes complete sense and is why they love it. Should we go on? We've been talking about this.
Yeah. What's your next?
My next book I want to talk about. This was my pick through most of my reading. This was the one you guessed was going to be my pick this week. Undone by Blood: The Other Side of Eden, #1. This is a new book by Aftershock this week. There's a joke that Tim will always pick the post-apocalyptic Western, and that could be true. I mean, like, ultimately I don't always pick Firefly, which is post-apocalyptic Western, but this book is in fact a Western, sort of. This is as close as I could call. This is a Great Depression Western. So the story is two stories. We have a guy living in the Great Depression. He was a former postman. He's lost his job. He's down on his luck. At the start of the book, he's buying a Western pulp fiction novel for $0.25. He uses his last nickel to buy a sandwich later on. And he goes and he's reading this book throughout the course of the other story, where he's working with another one of his postal worker buddies, and they're getting ready to break in and steal a lot of money from a rich person, essentially, is the story. So as he's reading the story about a heist, a guy who's broken out of jail for a heist, he's then living kind of the heist that he's getting ready to take. And so it just bounces back and forth in a real neat way. The main character of this is really interesting. His buddy is obnoxious. Like, you want to punch him in the face, and you're like, why are you knocking over a place with this guy, right? Because you really don't like him. The Western story that's going on is interesting too. And at the end, most of this took place while he was reading chapter 3 of that book. And at the end, you actually get chapter 3. Not 1 or 2, but you get chapter 3 of this pulp fiction Western that he's reading.
That's kind of cool, though.
Yeah, the whole thing is just, it was one of those things, it was a book with 3, like, kind of giant mega releases this week. There was Demon Days, there was Nocterra, there was the Keanu Reeves books, Berserker. I don't know how to say it with no vowels, but this could very easily get missed. But it shouldn't. Like, this was a really, really good book. Very much enjoyed it. It did something different than a lot of other books are doing, and so yeah, that was my number 2, I guess, if you want to rank them in that order.
My number 2 was Swamp Thing. Number 1, Infinite Frontier.
Yeah.
It says up there. I thought you said this didn't tie in at all to Infinite Frontier.
Well, that's an Infinite Frontier miniseries. It does tie in Infinite Frontier, but in the Infinite Frontier book, they didn't bring in the miniseries directly.
I'm sure they will release a book that somehow ties all this in later, and Tim will have it as his pick of the week and be like, that was the greatest thing ever.
It will be, because they'll have to bring in the Tom King book.
Since I've been on this side of the counter, we have not had a Swamp Thing book. We have had a Swamp Thing Winter Special, and we have had the Justice League Dark, and we have had the
He's a major character in Dark Knight's Death Metal that you refused to read.
And we had the Future State Swamp Thing issues 1 and 2. I really liked Future State Swamp Thing a lot. The same writer is writing this. This, however, is a brand new character as Swamp Thing, which, if you know the history of Swamp Thing...
Wait, Jeff, you have to know the history of Swamp Thing?
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, if you know the history of Swamp Thing, that's just a weird concept in itself, because Swamp Thing Alec Holland, turns out in the Alan Moore run, was never Alec Holland. Like, he was always just Swamp Thing that, like, took the form. So the fact that they're like, this is a spec book this week, because it is a new character as Swamp Thing. He is of Indian descent, and I'm guessing this was one of the, like, future state things. I'm sure it'll turn out really cool. That is going to be an interesting thing to navigate down the line. If you're not coming with that baggage of continuity coming into the read, that's going to be water off a duck's back, and you're just going to be like, oh, cool. This new guy being Swamp Thing. I will say, so far, I'm less engaged with the new character, and more engaged with the new villain. They kind of hint at him as the Pale Rider, I believe he's called, and he seems creepy as all get out, and is really, really good. So that right now is where the hooks are in to be on it. Ross said he doesn't know how to be. He says it's a very different type of Swamp Thing.
Ross, I mean, he actually got going with the store because he loved he bought his first book on one of our auctions. It was a fun thing. I forgot about that, Ross.
And I would say that too. This book is very Tom King-y. It is very. You have definitely two different storylines kind of going on simultaneously. Where you have the Swamp Thing part. And,
you're going to be on camera in about 2 seconds, Andrew.
And the villain part, and how they connect, we're not really sure yet. So it is that kind of thing where, like, you have to have some Tom King level faith of, like, okay, this stuff will pay off later. But I really enjoyed it, and I'm just happy to have a Swamp Thing book, even if, like, right now I'm not like, this is my favorite thing. I don't have that feeling about it yet, but, like, you could see where it could pay off down the line.
Last book I want to talk about in a little longer format, and a shorter, little longer format, because we're running out of time this morning, but Nocterra. This book I liked a lot better than I was expecting to, which may have been why it showed up so high on the list. This book by Scott Snyder was one of those 3 mega releases this week. It had like a dozen covers and variant covers and all that stuff that goes with kind of a mega release. Essentially, we enter this world where the world is covered by an inky blackness. One woman and her little brother running a business hauling people from city to city, which you have to do very carefully because anytime you're in the inky blackness for like 10 hours, you start becoming this like monster. Yeah. And so you've got to only spend a short amount of time there. We get a lot of her backstory where she was born blind and had an operation so she could see, and so she talks about always being in the inky black, which is interesting in and of itself. They're hired to get an old man and his granddaughter to safety. It ultimately didn't necessarily feel like a new idea. It feels like I've read this book in different versions, different concepts of it. A dozen times. However, it was very well executed. The art was really good. The characters were really good. Scott Snyder, I thought, was building a very interesting world. Compare it to, what was the one where America was all weird that he's doing right now?
Undiscovered Country.
Undiscovered Country. Where I did not like his world building there. In this one, I really enjoy his world building. I thought it was very well done. So. Nocterra, a lot better than I was expecting. That was kind of my number 3 pick. Did you read it, Jeff?
I didn't get to that one yet, so that'll be part of my Sunday morning reading. I'm looking forward to it, though. He used to be one of my favorite writers, and I haven't enjoyed as much his stuff lately.
Outside of as an Undiscovered Country, there I've enjoyed most of his stuff, but yeah.
Berserker.
Berserker.
If you
you can't pronounce that word without a vowel.
Berserker.
So.
It's like this. They did this for SEO's sake. It's BRZRKR, and it just looks like the Swedish chef is trying to say something. This book, there is no way that this Keanu Reeves book can meet the hype train that has come along with it.
I mean, it can't be that good, but it can continue to sell at that level because it's a book with Keanu Reeves' name on it about a character who looks like Keanu Reeves that will probably wind up in a movie starring Keanu Reeves, directed by Keanu Reeves, executive produced by Keanu Reeves.
Which we support celebrities.
Go Keanu Reeves!
Like, historically on this show, we've supported those kind of celebrity hijinks. It's probably exactly what Tim and I would do. With like, here's the Tim and Jeff comic book!
I mean, if I was that famous and good at writing a comic book, I'm sure I'd make it about myself. Like,
but like, if you can somehow read this in a vacuum from the hype train of this book, it's a fine book. I mean, it's not treading any new ground. It's Eternal Warrior. It's Old Guard. It's that kind of story. He's an immortal fighter who is fighting for his He's fighting to try to earn his mortality, which is a cool but like done before concept. And if you know the beats of those kind of stories, you know there's a point where Keanu gets like blown all to hell in this, and you could see that coming a mile away because it's an immortal warrior type book, and then but it's still cool when it happens and looks really cool. Also, there's the whole like reveal at the end that I guess is supposed to be like, oh, is it shows him in like ancient work, but like every book like this.
But he already kind of listed that he was immortal, so the fact that he remembers his birth 8,000 years ago is not necessarily
right. And every book like this does book or story like this does that. So it's like it's not anything new. It's not trending. That said, we read a lot of comics around here. This is a pretty good one. Like if you could divorce.
It was a heap full of fun.
Yeah,
I had it 5 of 10. I enjoyed the read. Jeff and I will agree on it. It was very middle of the pack, but it was a good book.
Yeah, it was. It would definitely be. I put it at 3, but I don't necessarily rank things. I like it deserved more conversation. But it's like, it's an easy thing to hate on just because of the hype, and just because it's like, oh, I got the print run's insane. It's scary insane. It's the first thing I've seen that's like, okay, maybe we are approaching some of those '90s levels of stuff. But it's a solid book.
Yeah. So the next one I want to talk about as we kind of move into...
what are your also rans there, Tim? Lightning round.
Lightning round. I read Suicide Squad #1. This is Infinite Frontier Suicide Squad. This was my pick of the week for a while. I really enjoyed this book. And it came because I think it's difficult because Tom Taylor's run was so good, and this comes on its heels. But by itself, this is a great book. They're definitely not focusing on the same characters Taylor did, and we get John Cena, Peacemaker, who even looks like John Cena on the cover, which I thoroughly appreciated. I thought this was a really, really good story. I appreciate finally a Suicide Squad that's not Harley based and Deadshot based. So the next one, I read the sensational Wonder Woman #1. I didn't know this was coming. I didn't know what it was. It was a series of webcomics that were shorter. I think it was 3 10-page webcomics. They put them together into one story, which is still only a regular-sized issue. It's just a kind of a classic Wonder Woman story. I would rather just talk about real quick, why don't we have Sensation Comics back? Right, Batman started in Detective Comics. We get 2 Batman books. We have Superman started in Action Comics. We get 2 Superman books. Wonder Woman started, she started in All-Star Comics, but that's only 1 issue. Sensation Comics was kind of where she got her start. We've got 3 Wonder Womans now, and 4 if you count the fact that her mom is going to be in the Justice League as Wonder Woman. So why not have a Sensation Comics Wonder Woman?
I would argue that it's probably something to do with the fact that consistently Wonder Woman is one of our worst selling books.
But that's here though. She's got to sell big. They've added 4 Wonder Womans.
But I mean, if you look at that's everywhere, Tim.
4 Wonder Woman.
Like, go look at Comic-Con. It is
you
one
know
of...
what? I'm going to just say this.
I'm not... That's not like a... That's not a quality judgment.
No, it's not. They're going to have more than one book, right? We have the Wonder Woman book. We have... They talked about the Yara Wonder Woman... Stop. They talked about the Yara Wonder Woman book in Infinite Frontier.
Yes.
So they've talked about the Nubia Wonder Woman book that's coming.
Yes.
And her mom is going to be Wonder Woman in Justice League.
Yes.
So instead of giving those books different names, my point is, why not bring back Sensation Comics issue 101 instead of saying we've got Wonder Woman
That would
Junior
be awesome.
Book? That's the point I was making with this entire thing.
Very
you were like, look at the numbers, Tim.
But like
they're doing it anyways.
I wish we had better sales on Wonder Woman books.
That's great either way, but I'm saying they're putting out those books, so why not bring back that name?
Yeah.
That's my comment towards it.
Yeah, that would be great. It's this weird thing where it's like the worst Batman book still sells like crazy.
But what is that, man? They're still bringing them out. I mean, they're going to be producing the 4 books, right? Yeah. So...
Okay.
They may not sell, but they're all coming out. They're all on the release schedule, right? We're getting 3 different Wonder Woman books in 2021.
Yeah. No, I'd be all about, like, let's just do a sensational comics, and because we have action comics, we have detective.
Yeah, I think it would be cool. It's a cool history thing to have that back.
I wish they... You
can even split up the one and put one in each book.
Well, and that would be a step towards taking better care of Wonder Woman. Like, the sales of that book shouldn't be as low as they consistently are. It's ridiculous. But they don't. They just throw everything to the wind on that even main book. They don't take care of the character or give it... When a new creative team comes on, they're not like, here's a new #1, here's a new... Like, they just kind of, it's Wonder Woman, whatever.
Yeah, I would say that to a point. At the same hand, she was the driving force behind all of death metal.
Which is
cool. She was the reason all of that happened. She's the driving force moving into Infinite Frontier. She's the reason it's all happening. So they're doing neat things with her. But to see people... Yeah, I would love to see more people. If you're watching this, buy Wonder Woman.
Yep.
That's maybe what we're saying. American Chavez #1. I want to talk about that. I kind of missed the memo that this was a version of Miss America in the Marvel Universe. The last time it came out, it was under American Comics. It was a great book. I had no idea it was even Marvel owned at that point in time. So to see her now in the Marvel Universe, she's actually apparently been cast for being in Doctor Strange's Multiverse of Madness. So I tried to buy her first appearance, but it's really expensive. This was good though. She's hanging out with the Hawkeye. They're killing giant mole things. There's a whole thing on how she ended up into our universe. And an understory of her family.
I was planning on reading that this morning, and then parenting got in the way. But
I read Crime Syndicate. This is another DC book that I don't believe is part of Infinite Frontier. However, we basically have a multiverse where all of the superheroes have kind of went the wrong way. They've all let power corrupt them in different ways. So, like, Superman is Ultraman, and he's like supreme dictator, and you've got Wonder Woman as Superwoman, and she uses her lasso of truth to kind of get truths out of people, and then use them to take more power. So it's an interesting look at that Justice League. And the last thing I read was Jonah and the Impossible Monsters. This was at the bottom of my list, not because it was it definitely wasn't for me. It was a kid's book. Chris Samney is doing the art for one of my favorite books right now, Firepower. He writes and does the art in this. He co-writes, I believe, with his wife. And very much this was an enjoyable little romp. We have 2 sisters. They're out in the woods. One of them runs into a monster and disappears. Monsters are suddenly back in the world. We jump ahead a year later. The older sister's still looking for a younger sister in a world that has been destroyed by these monsters that showed up out of the blue. I think I read this book in 3 minutes, though. If that tells you just, like, it's a lot of big pictures and small words, and so it was a neat run through that. I enjoyed it. I'll probably give it to my daughter when I get back home.
My also ran Batman 106. Like, Batman was supposed to reset, but this Batman stuff is selling so well that they're like, hey, Tinian, just keep rolling with that. I do like, it's interesting, we touch on a lot of this. This feels like Terminator 2 in that we've just jumped forward in the future and seen all the, like, future state stuff with the magistrate and everything else, and then we're jumping and playing around with like the magistrate starting.
And knowing we don't have to get there the same way because the future has not yet been written. So
yeah, well, I didn't read that 0 issue. I was fine without that, but like I still
well, then you would have thought you already knew the ending, right? Like, who wants to know the ending? When you know it can all be written differently, Tinian's not in a box now that says I have to write this exactly.
Oh, so you're going to read this?
No, Tinian,
Okay.
Tinian just sells characters.
The other thing,
Molly Miracle or whatever her name is.
it's a good book though. It's got backstory that's all Damien and like it's
First appearance of Molly the Miracle Worker, whatever her name is.
It's a good book. Other thing I'm going to talk about, Star Wars High Republic #3. I still really, really like this book. But again, for me, it's something that, like, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is one of my favorite all-time Star Wars things ever. And all that stuff got knocked out of continuity when Disney took over. This is the first time they're kind of going back and playing in that era. And I'm really enjoying it. This book was the first time that we kind of got to see these newer characters without the older wizened Jedi master that's kind of like, he's that crocodile dude that's like the guy that they're like training under that's like usually taking out all the stuff. He's out of commission right now, and so we're really actually seeing these characters fend for their own, and it was really good and really cool. And then they're introducing this like almost bug-like Borg-like entity into the Star Wars universe, which is just fascinating and really cool because it's a sci-fi concept you've seen a lot before, both in things like X-Men and Star Trek and stuff like that, but seeing the Star Wars take on it is a lot of fun.
Well, let me leave you with the good news about comics this week. Jeff and I, we may have had some disagreements on a few things. We always will. But
Always.
we read 17 books, I think, between the two of us, and ultimately, we've liked everything we've read this week.
Yeah, no,
I know there's still things I want to read, but I don't have any. I mean, the closest thing I have to say was one book was I didn't like the title. So I think that's a very strong statement on a week that had 3. Because oftentimes mega releases get a little overhyped.
Mm-hmm.
And usually there's somebody who likes them and somebody who hates them. All 3 of those books had definitely value to them. Nocterra, Demon Days, and Berserker. And there were a whole lot of other things that were really, really good as well.
Yeah.
And for a lot of different reasons. So, check out some of those books. Check out some of the other ones if you haven't yet. And I hope you enjoyed, for the people who watched live, the live format.
Yeah.
Some of you may be watching later, as we'll, of course, put this up. For those of you listening, we're sorry about the poor audio quality. Hopefully we'll get that fixed next week as well. As we're gonna, I think we're gonna do this again next week. You want to try to do that?
Yeah, sure.
So we have to go earlier, but I'll let you know. So
okay, cool. Thanks for everyone who supports the things we do here over at patreon.com/Rad Raptor. Really helps keep the lights on. It's the price of 1 comic a month, and it gets you access to a whole bunch of extra podcasts, extra content, and extra auctions that only other patrons can bid in. So there's very low competition. As always, Facebook.com/Rad Raptor Comics is where we put a whole bunch of auctions and ways to buy cool comic books through us. And that helps keep the lights on too. And we appreciate all of you doing that sort of stuff. Thanks so much. We will see you next week where you can watch and hear Tim and I argue about wonderful things again.
I have no idea what's coming out yet, so it'll be exciting.
Have a good week, everyone.
See ya.
Woo!